Red light. Usually it says green light means go Mita, but when we're on LinkedIn Live, red light
Here we
means
go, red light.
I've come to trust StreamYard and going live, but I'm just going to do the thing where I make sure that we're actually live, and we are. Hoorah! Hello, LinkedIn universe. Please hop into the comments. Let us know that you are here and where you're joining us from, and if you're tuning in the recording, welcome. And sit down because this is going to be wonderful, or walk, or just do anything. But listen, if you're in a position to. Please meet Mita Mallick. I'm so pleased to be with you here, Mita. I was introduced to you through a mutual friend, Lan Fan, and I just saw you like one day. I had an algorithmic win, and LinkedIn sent me your stuff. I think the first thing I saw of yours was your article in the Harvard Business Review on gaslighting and bullying that I know you referenced and quoted Lan from. And so like I've just been admiring from afar, and fortunately connected, and we're here having this conversation on all of the things, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, representation, women in the workforce. So this is the stage set, I hope, and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Stephen. And Lan is a magical connector. She also had sent me your details and said, you two just need to meet. So here we are.
Cool. And now we get to have, I know we've spoken once before and traded a bunch of stuff, but now we get to have our next conversation in front of people and try to help make a meaningful progress with the work that we're both doing. Welcome, Lori. Hey, Bandish. See you tomorrow morning, Bandish. So you, I know you're a LinkedIn creator this year. Another thing that you said yes to.
Yes.
As a busy working mom of 2 young kids, you're just like, well, I can't say no.
And well, now I'm just being more choiceful. I say no to a lot of things that aren't adding value and joy into my life.
Nice.
And so that's, and I stopped. I think we talked about this. People ask me, how do you do it all? Which I don't think my husband ever gets that question. But I stopped drinking. I stopped Netflix binging. I stopped buying more Zoom tops I don't need. And so you start to streamline your life on the things that matter most to you.
Nice. That's like a Marie Kondo application of cleaning to one's own life. Does it bring me joy?
Yes. Does it bring me joy? And LinkedIn brings me a lot of joy, and connecting with thought leaders like you brings me a lot of joy.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. And so I know sort of what you've focused on, or the sort of stake you're claiming with being a LinkedIn creator this year, is around women in the workforce, entering, re-entering, as someone with a wife who has an amazing career. I'm a staunch advocate. I had a mother who worked as well. I'm a big advocate of women in the workforce, and particularly mothers re-entering into the workforce. But yeah, I mean, I know we're going to talk about as much as we can from inclusion to representation, and really welcome that everyone, as we follow along here, add in your comments, add your questions for Mita as we get going. But yeah, any opening thoughts before I sort of prompt with this specific question as we get going?
I just think it is so devastating what's happened to women in this pandemic from a workforce perspective. And the big stat, which is US stat, I know we have a global audience, but it is that women's workforce participation has dropped to levels that we haven't seen since 1980s. That is 4 decades of progress wiped out. Why aren't we screaming from the rooftops? Because we are burnt out. Like, I am in perpetual burnout phase. And I think 2 years in March, I've been here in this bedroom working, right? And I have the privilege, Stephen, of having this conversation from home with you, and shout out to so many of our frontline workers who are keeping our economies around the world going. But I just don't, like, I'm at a loss. Like, how did we have 4 decades, and how are people not shouting from the rooftops? And where are the allies, right? As you are, where are the allies? And so LinkedIn has a creator accelerator program they created this year. I created a short video, and I pitched and said, I just want my 10 weeks of my content to be about how do we get women back into the workforce? And it is not just from the perspective, it is from the perspective of leaders and recruiters and what they should be doing, but also tips and advice on guidance for women. I've been through the job search many of times. It can be depressing, highs and lows, and painful. And so I just want to give all the tips I know, and using LinkedIn is one way to help you land your dream job. And I hope that more people listening will think about, like, if imagine the tipping point, if every single one of us thought about a woman who is out of work, who is trying to get back into the workforce. What if every single one of us found that person and helped coach her? Imagine sort of the ripple effect. And then also, as we were just talking before we went live, I'm in Jersey City, New Jersey in the US. The rates are still really high here. There's also the tension that there are many women, there's no choice, they cannot go back to work. Our communities have been ripped out from under us. The village that helped us is no longer there. And so we cannot go back to work right now, as in many cases, the primary caregiver in our homes.
Yeah, and I mean, I even feel this in my home. I believe that I try to cultivate it as a egalitarian relationship as possible with my wife. But I see it and I notice it that more of the things sort of seemingly fall on her plate. And it's not a fair enough excuse for me to go to my wife. Well, just tell me what you need me to do. That's like going to your boss and saying, tell me what work to work on.
Yes.
And so I've seen sort of, though we've made so much progress as a society with women's rights, to your point, we've taken steps back, at least from a statistics perspective, to levels of the 1980s, which isn't right or acceptable or good.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer as well. I think, there's the great resignation. There's also the great talent shuffle.
Yes.
Right? The talent swap. And I've seen time and time again, people willingly even taking less pay, particularly knowledge economy workers, for greater flexibility and greater culture.
Yes.
And so, I'm a real staunch advocate. Like if there's a mother from North Dakota or Bangladesh who can work 4.5 wonderful, meaningful hours, great, bring it on. And let's pay you fine and well and not take advantage,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I hope more people start to think like that, as I think the pandemic has shown us in many ways that you can work from anywhere and still make impact.
Totally. And I think the organizations that embrace that flexible and inclusive way of working are going to get and stay ahead.
Absolutely. They're going to build their employer brand. They're going to attract talent, right? I call it the Great Awakening, as you know. Mm-hmm. We all have our terms. People are fed up with, I would say, American work culture, because that's what I know. It's a lot of pent up anger and aggression and emotion, and people will no longer tolerate not being valued, seen, or heard. So they will walk away without jobs in hand. They will walk away for less money. I don't need all the swag and the benefits and the free lunches and all that. Like, I want to feel like my contributions matter and I'm valued.
Yes. Which I think is a wonderful shift in the power dynamics.
Yes.
Of the supply and demand of employment. I mean, let's face it, the power is more so in the hands of people who are interviewing. It's not 100%, but more so. Yeah. I think, and I want to get into some of the tips and tricks and tactical things that you have to share, particularly with women or allies or anyone, those populations that you mentioned, of how we can meaningfully make progress here. But yeah. So, I mean, let's hop into some of those tips and things. So I know you've been posting about it, but what are some of those top of mind things? And great to see. Hey, Chris, liquid work for sure. Hey, Tara, another wonderful, amazing working mother. Please feel free to add in any comments and questions for Mita as we go here. So Mita, what sort of tips and tricks?
Well, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. It's my preferred social media platform. My husband thinks it's probably a waste of time, or he's told me that, but I love it because I get so much out of it: storytelling, education, meeting people. And so for anybody who is speaking directly to women who are looking to get back into the workforce, get on LinkedIn. If you're not, create a profile with a picture, have your experience, create some keywords of what you're looking to do, right? You can certainly go look at my profile for inspiration and steal with pride, whatever you think would work for you. A killer about section. I always say killer, like if we were having coffee like we are now, like just tell me about yourself, right? And so that's like step one. Step two is make a list of 3 to 5 companies that you're interested in working at. Follow those companies and also follow key leaders at those companies. So let's say I'm looking at a company. Steven is the vice president of supply chain. I want to get into supply chain. I follow him. And then I start engaging in the content that the companies are creating and that Steven's creating. And that's the way to stand out in the job search, right? Because what'll happen over time, and this has just happened in our relationship, Steven, is like you show up on each other's feeds. Mm-hmm. And then Steven's like, oh, Mita, like, thanks for that comment. That was really insightful. And that happens over time, so that we've created this relationship digitally, right? Yep. And so then when I show up and direct message you in 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and say, Steven, it's been great to get to know you on LinkedIn. I love your content. I love your thoughts on supply chain. I'm wondering if you'd be open to a 20-minute virtual coffee. I'm actively looking to get back into the workforce. I'm looking in supply chain, right? And so that's how you're more likely now to respond, because we have a relationship rather than like a cold direct message. And then there's 3 things that are going to happen. One is that you ghost me, which I don't think will happen. And as my friend Callie Schweitzer says, LinkedIn is a platform of generosity. So you won't ghost me because you know me, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then I think
there's also already social capital because we're engaging in each other's stuff. Yes. If someone is indeed on LinkedIn and active,
So you're not going to ghost me. And then you're either going to say, you know what? I'm a busy executive. Send me your resume directly. I'm going to get it into the hands of the recruiter, or you're going to have the coffee meeting with me. Mm-hmm. And so I just think to like flip the process and think about how you can stand out. Don't wait for the companies to come to you, like go after them and then they'll start coming to you, right? Because I'm so tired of just submitting resumes that go into the dark hole. Like we're into the bot, into the, I don't know, like
enter the right keyword and pray.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the old age stat that 70 to 80% of jobs are found through networking anyway. So by all means, like use the Indeeds and use all the things, but if that's your only method or strategy, good luck to you. I think, as always, building genuine relationships is the way to go. Yeah. And using a platform like LinkedIn for its power. I mean, there are people that I've never had a conversation with, but they've engaged with my stuff and we formed, friendships through, messaging. Obviously it's far more powerful when we get to hop on or, eventually get to meet in person, but use the tool for its good.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask people, at companies. So right now, to anyone listening, I work at Carta. If you see a job that you think you're a fit for at Carta, DM me. A lot of people do that, and I will send your resume into recruiting. And so that is a better way than just applying through the post, right? A lot of people do. A lot of people will say, no, I want to go and apply through LinkedIn Jobs. But what I would say to you is, if you are looking to work at Procter & Gamble, go through your network and see, oh, Steven knows Mita, and Mita knows this person who works at P&G. Mm-hmm. And so think about another way to get your resume into the company versus just submitting through the link.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing I like to remind people as well is, there are companies and brands that we all know, and yet 80% of the economy are small to mid-sized businesses of organizations you've never heard of.
Absolutely.
And though it isn't Apple or Harley Davidson or Southwest Airlines or Carta or Google or Amazon and the list goes on, there's still tons of amazing places to work with great leaders for companies, Sam's Paint Shop, that like is a wonderful place to go work. Absolutely. So, that align with your values and beliefs and your lifestyle and all the things. So, my 2 cents as well. We don't have the penny in Canada anymore, so I like to say my nickel.
Your nickel, I like that. Yeah. I think just to build on what you said is like, for job seekers, interrupt your own bias during the job process, which is a flip, because we always talk about the hiring manager, the recruiter has bias, but I have bias, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's this job I want. This is the only job. I'm only going to take a VP title or a director title, or I want it in this industry, or I want it to be in this big fancy company. And so the pandemic has proven, let go of the job description, right? Like, what skills do you have and what is the career you envision for yourself? And so you might be surprised at some of these opportunities. I think some of the, like, if you had told me I would be working in fintech right now, I'd be like, no way.
Yeah.
Like I would, I was always a beauty person. I'm still a beauty obsessive. I've sold a lot of beauty products in my life, but I'm really thriving and growing right now. And so don't interrupt your bias on what you think that next role is going to be. Really be really open to it and have conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. To borrow from a friend of mine, Simon Sinek, it's not what you do that matters, it's why you do it. And so you can find yourself in a total different arena doing something that's lovely that you never thought you would, because of things that matter. Like, it doesn't matter that you have to sell beauty products. You could provide a human experience that's totally different and be totally fulfilled by it. Awesome. A great comment here from my friend Chelsea. And I think this is a comment, I want to sort of take this in the direction, Mita, of leaders. Where I'm at in Canada, it's far more, we're more Norway than we are US in terms of maternity leaves. And I've seen very talented, capable, amazing mothers who go out for 1 or 2 maternity leaves. And it's just, I'm thinking of one close friend of mine, Haley. I'm thinking of another, Lisa, who take these maternity leaves and they go like, oh, it's just not my time yet. And I've seen people around me progress. And yet I think one of the things that leaders need to be aware of is, even though there's a gap on someone's resume potentially because they went on a maternity leave, like, newsflash, women, parents grow through the rearing of their children and bring transferable skills and attributes back into the workforce, and perspective and calm and patience when they're raising a human being. I'm just such a staunch advocate and believer of this, that I think more leaders need to embrace this rather than like take it as a tick against women for taking time off to help raise their child.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, you talk about maternity leave bias, parental leave bias. Now there's the 2-year pandemic gap year bias, right? Yeah. And so I think also what we fail to recognize, as you said, is all of the things that we've done during that time. I am the chief entertainment officer. I'm the sous chef. The kitchen's open all day long. I'm the chief creative officer. I'm the referee, the laundress, right? Everything plus working, right? So the question is that what are the skills that I've learned as a parent? I'm strategic. I'm creative. We just talked about this earlier. I am ruthless at prioritizing. I get shit done, right?
Yeah.
I think I think mothers are like one of the greatest pipelines for talent we have access to, and the most overlooked.
Yeah.
The most overlooked.
Yeah. I'm a really big believer in hiring for attributes over skills. So this is my friend Rich Davini's work. He just wrote this book, The Attributes, and it's brilliant. So Rich distinguishes between a skill and an attribute. So a skill is something you can learn or teach. An attribute is more inherent to your nature. So like, for example, I'm not a believer in multitasking. Multitasking is doing more than one thing at lower ability. I'm a believer in task switching.
Interesting.
Okay. Right? So, right, like you're on a conference call, all of a sudden your WhatsApp channel from your kid's school is going, there's a request for more snack, you got to do laundry, like you're task switching.
Okay, I like that. I learned something new.
I think, anyone who's interviewing and you ask someone, hey, it's really important in this role that you can manage multiple projects at the same time. Can you tell me an experience when you did that? And if you punish someone for saying, well, I actually want to talk to you about my role as a mother during the pandemic. Like, just because it isn't at work or isn't professional, it's applicable. And I don't think we should punish people for talking about things that don't involve Excel sheets,
And that's where the education for the hiring managers and the recruiters has to come in, and how you interrupt those biases.
Yeah.
People.
And here we go from Lori. Parenting is the ultimate on the job. Absolutely. Anything else here? And please keep questions and comments coming. This is fantastic. Anything else in terms of your work and thoughts on women in the workforce. How do we return, and make up for all the progress we've lost before we talk about other stuff like bullying, gaslighting,
all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah, I'll be posting a lot more content on this. Also, anyone who's listening who's looking for a job, please DM me. Can't respond to everyone, but I want to do my best to help. Also, for anyone who is looking for a job, please use LinkedIn to land your dream job. And what do I mean by that? We talked about how you can follow someone like Steven and get on his radar if he's hiring, but you can also be posting great content and showcasing your thought leadership. Yeah. So I am technically right now not in a marketing role. I am a diversity, equity, inclusion leader, but I still get calls for marketing. People think I'm a marketer because I am a marketer and I show up as a marketer. I talk about inclusive marketing a lot. So whatever area you want to go into and grow, start posting about that twice a week consistently. Find an article someone's written, share your comments, right? Start doing that, and you will start to see that recruiters will start reaching out to you because you are showcasing your expertise. And also when they are like, well, Mita hasn't worked for 2 years. Okay. But then I go on her LinkedIn. Wow, Mita has a lot of thoughts on beauty marketing. She, like exactly what you're like, she has expertise. She has thoughts, she has value that she's going to bring to this role, because the resume, that old one-page resume, is not going to show that. But the digital resume on LinkedIn will show that.
Yeah. I think there's also really fun creative things that people can do, inclusive of taking 18 months or 2 years off because you were chief parent or whatever your circumstance. You can still post content about, here's what I've learned as a parent during the pandemic and how it can be transferable to project management. Yeah. Or you can get creative and create a new role called chief laundress.
I've seen people do. Yeah, a lot of people do that. It's great.
Right?
Stay-at-home parent, which LinkedIn now you have an option. You can actually pick that as an option if you want. And
you can still talk about the things that you did, the skills and attributes that you've developed and grown. Like, get creative. Yeah. Cool.
And the last thing is, like, we need more allies like you, Steven, in rooms when decisions are being made to say, stop talking about how she hasn't worked for 2 years. Like, that's so you can do all the stuff. You can get me into the interview. I'm interviewing. I'm a great fit. And then it comes down to that debrief, right? And somebody's going to be like, I don't know. She hasn't worked. Oh, I don't know. And that's when we need allies to step up and say, check the other people in the room.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the most important thing.
Yeah.
To convert that into an offer.
I remember an experience of mine personally, and something I'm not so proud of on reflection, but it was a growing moment. So number of years ago, this is probably, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago. I was part of a team, small team, and I was fairly senior, reported into the CEO. And we were hiring for a junior role, and someone who made it into the final round. I found out through the process, naturally and in line with HR code, that this person was pregnant with twins, and like 6 months pregnant with twins. And we were going to onboard them all so that they could take time off for maternity leave. And I, like, very much not proud of this. I sort of said to our CEO, like, is this the right, like, should we really be hiring someone just so that we can train them and then give them time off? Like, is that the smartest move? And my CEO, to her credit, said, if we take a chance and risk on her in a time that she needs this, she's going to be loyal and going to be the most hardworking. You just watch. And I went, I stand corrected. Right on. Let's do it. And that person, I worked with them for 7 years. Wow. And they were amazing and hardworking and loyal and all of the things. And even better, I got to see her twins grow up. So it was one of those moments where I'm really glad that I felt safe enough in my relationship with my boss to share my feelings.
Yeah.
And then my boss didn't go, oh yeah, you're right. They went, no. Like, let's take a chance on someone and have them earn it, because they will.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing that, because not enough people are sharing those stories of, like, the mistakes you've made as an ally and what you've learned, because you're right. Hey, the smartest thing you can do right now in this market is if you find out I'm 6 or 7 months pregnant, which I'm not, because I'm done. I have a 6 and 9-year-old. But if I am, you could hire me right now and lock me in. And you could hire me, train me. I go out on leave. I have my leave, I come back, and I will, like you said, I will be so loyal. I will be like, this place is incredible. And I've seen one other instant of a leader do that, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Cool. Thank you. So let's talk about, like gaslighting and bullying and inclusion and representation, which
Yeah.
I know, that's how I first came across you. And I'm like, whoa, this person is on fire sharing such good, useful stuff. Um, I've become so I've become quite staunchly passionate about speak up cultures and
Mhm.
psychological safety,
Yeah.
which I know you're passionate about and a fan of as well. And yet when the environments go wrong, particularly when you have, high performing leaders who um essentially just don't treat people fairly or right, and there's bullying and there's lack of representation. So I mean, I know it's something that you're very passionate about, and we can learn from both your experiences and your ideas here, so
Yeah.
permission to pivot there.
Absolutely. Well, I am the proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents. I grew up outside of Boston, and I was the funny looking girl with a long, funny looking braid, dark skin, whose parents spoke funny English until it wasn't funny anymore. And I was bullied a lot, both verbally and physically growing up. And so no one warned me that those bullies that were in the schoolyards and classrooms, that they would actually follow me into corporate America. I had no idea when I
Mm,
graduated. I was so naive. I really had no idea. And so I wish I could say, and I have nothing to lose now, so I'm sharing everything. I wish I could say that there was one incident of bullying. It's been throughout my career, and there was a very really hard time in my life where it was the bullying, gaslighting, harassment, which lasted for too long, right? And I'm on a path to forgive myself, wondering why I stayed for so long.
mm,
But it happens too often, and we don't talk about it, right? And it's really interesting, Stephen. I go back to like my childhood, and I wonder, like my immigrant parents who did the best they could because they came from a different country, and now in retrospect, I think they were being bullied as well by neighbors and coworkers and things like that. But
mm.
where were the other parents? Where were the teachers? Where were law enforcement? And that analogy is in our corporations. Like, where is everyone else watching these things happen?
Yeah,
Right? Because I could be bullying and harassing you. You could be the target
yeah,
this relationship. But the question is, where are all the other people that are watching this? They are silent bystanders watching all of these things happen, tying to what you're talking about with speak up culture. So it is really difficult in the power dynamics, right? If you're reporting into me, for you to speak up, right? And especially to talk about gaslighting, I will deny that it happened. So even if you approach the gaslighter, I'll be like, that never happened. I never slapped you across the face. Hopefully
further
that won't
further
happen.
gaslighting. Yeah,
Right. But I never did that. The denying, the manipulation, the minimization. And so I think when I wrote that piece for Harvard Business Review, I'd been writing it for years in like my heart and head, and I finally published it. And I was like, scared when it came out. And I was like, oh my God, the outpouring that I still get, because no one talks about it. People are like sharing their stories, and it's like painful. But there's community in that, right? And then there's also like, with these stories, you start to hopefully see things change because people are no longer like in the shadows, not talking. And there's like shame and humiliation. Like I still feel that, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for the courage to write about it, even if it was years in the making. That you submitted, you hit send, and it's both fortunate and unfortunate that it resonates with so many people. That this is the experience of so many.
Yes.
I've seen it, I've experienced it as well myself. I don't think as consistently or as bad as you have in what you're describing, but I've still seen it and experienced it myself, and seen it and experienced it of others. I mean, the bystander effect is real,
It's real.
which is, ironically, when more people watch it or more people see it happening, there's less of a chance that someone will raise their voice or speak up because, oh well, somebody else will.
Somebody else will do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we need more people because it shouldn't be up to you to have to fight those fights alone.
And I think absolutely. And I think one of the things I was sharing with a friend of mine is like, as somebody who identifies as brown, as black and brown individuals in workspaces, places, it's the constant burden to educate other people, to defend ourselves, protecting our mental health and our physical health. And so sometimes when someone keeps, and this has happened to me for a long time, like, I don't know, it was a period of months where someone kept calling me Shilpa. My name is not Shilpa, but there were only 2 brown women in this division. And the division defined as a bunch of teens, right? So after a while, rather than correcting and saying it's Mita, and oh, by the way, for someone listening who doesn't believe it, oh, they probably looked alike. No, I am 5'1", she was 5'7", she had short hair, I had long hair. There was no physicality similar. But at that point, Stephen, it becomes really exhausting. So you just say it's okay. It's not okay. But how many times do I correct you when everybody else is watching this happen?
Yeah.
There's also this piece of people will say, well, you should stand up. You should defend yourself. And it's like, I do, but how many times can I do that until I am just in a perpetual state of burnout? Because it's not that one thing that's happened. It's different things happening on different days that accumulate.
Yeah. And I mean, so for me, in case you can't tell out there, I'm a middle-aged white male. Yes. But yet, I've awakened to a lot of things that I didn't know about, that I care about around a more inclusive, equitable world. And it is not enough for me to say, oh, I don't see color. If I say I don't see color, I regret to inform me that I'm part of the problem, because I live in a system, in a society that does and punishes.
Yes, thank you.
Right. So anyone who says, well, I don't see color, well, you're part of the problem. Sorry. And, though it's been uncomfortable, and though it has required embarrassment, and I don't know, am I saying the right thing? Like, ask for help, and don't just ask for help from your brown and Asian and Black and Jewish friends. Ask for help from other allies. I have amazing allies in my life who are white, and I consistently lean into them, who are, far more woke and far more inclusive than I am right now, to learn from them. Because if I actually care about this, I got to put my money where my mouth is and walk the talk with it.
Yeah. I would also say ask Google, and that's a flip, but it's like, don't ask me what it's like to be anti-racist, right? Ask Google. What's really interesting is that one of the oldest art forms in human civilization is storytelling, right? Mm-hmm. So we always crave a primary source to tell us a story. And so, but you have to ask yourself, particularly, I'll use myself as an example. I'm on a journey to be an ally to the Black community. At what cost do I have to go to a Black friend or colleague to ask them what they think about the murder of George Floyd? I don't need to ask them. I shouldn't have to, right? And we have to understand the intergenerational trauma and the pain. And so at what cost do you go to a primary source to educate yourself, right? Especially we were talking about Asian hate crimes and xenophobia, and what happened in New York City this weekend is really sitting heavy with me and so many people. You don't need to come and ask me how I feel about it. You should know, and you should Google it and educate yourself. Now, if you want to show up for me and you want to have a cup of tea, check in, send me a text, I'm thinking about you. We talked about what happened in Texas with anti-Semitism and the hostage situation in the synagogue, so many things happening in the world. Just check in on people. As well.
Yeah, I've seen, with the murder of George Floyd, and so, there's finally, I think, been legitimate progress. I think there are a lot of leaders and organizations who are doing performative DEI as opposed to real DEI.
Diversity washing, as I call it. Yeah.
What do you call it?
Diversity washing.
Washing, yeah.
Greenwashing, woke washing, yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen this in friends' works, in many workplaces, where the de facto person we rely upon is the marginalized population, which just further perpetuates the issue and the exhaustion. Versus, instead of me calling you up to be like, tell me more about what it's like to be a brown female in the corporate, America, I could say, how's it going? I've been trying to learn more and more, and I just want to learn more about your experience so I can support you.
Yeah, tell me, because we have a relationship. How are you doing today? What's happening? You also bring up an interesting point. It's like, for anyone listening out there, when these horrible, tragic events happen, they happen every single day. We think about what happened with Michelle Gao, who, if you haven't heard, was killed. when she was pushed into an oncoming New York City subway train. Imagine right now if when we decided, let's gather everybody who's of Asian descent and ask them how they feel in the company. We don't need to. Stop putting the plane on display of the community who is affected and impacted and hurting. Instead, how about the allies get together and understand? How can you be an ally right now to the Asian community? What is your role in this? And I think I see too many companies too often. Okay, let's go to our ERG. Let's gather the employee resource group of said group and put them on display to share their stories. It's like, no. Why is it not the flip? Why is it the burden? Why is the burden on them?
Yeah. And while I think, I'm a big fan of the platinum rule rather than the golden rule. So golden rule is do unto others as you would want done unto yourself, which lacks any empathy or compassion. I do think it is appropriate to say these are some of the things we're thinking about, but we don't know if it would actually be helpful. I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah, and I'm not saying to ignore that it happened. We should be checking in on each other, just like we said. But we don't need to gather groups en masse and ask them how they're feeling and to share their stories. Now, if you have that relationship, I might want to, right? That's the difference, right? We have a relationship, and then I say, you know what? I know you have a leadership team meeting coming up, and I'd actually like to share how I'm feeling about this issue. That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
You talked about the power dynamic of who's asking you and how that person might feel.
Yes.
Being forced to share the story. That's
when it's being offered. Yeah. And then, I think more than awareness, we now need action. I mean, I think there's growing and greater awareness. But now we need, what are we going to do about it? Which could include a program like, if you don't want to walk to the subway alone after work, we have buddies now where you do not have to walk alone, as an example, if that's something you want, But yeah, I think we need to move away from just storytelling, and we need to move into like, what are we actually going to do to solve these issues and make things safer and better?
Yeah. Have you talked to your Asian employees about how they're feeling about traveling right now or going into offices? Something we're talking about at work, about like creating safety kits. Hollaback has a great bystander training. If we were actually on the street right now and you saw someone try to attack me, what could you do? Right? You could call 911. Do you intervene? Do you don't? Like, thinking about these, that's a horrible thing to think about, but this is what's happening around the world right now. So what can you do? Can you buy an alarm system? Can you offer escorts? Can you offer coverage of Ubers, right? Like, what are the things that you can be doing? And then also, as we're like getting back and traveling, like if you start the night together as a team, end the night together, those sort of practical things and like how we can look out for each other is what we should be thinking about in our work communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know you have a new podcast that I've listened to called Brown Table Talk. And you have a co-host whose name I'm forgetting right now.
Oh, D. Marshall, the amazing D. Marshall. Yes.
Yeah. So what have you been learning? What's been most salient, most fun about that journey of talking Brown Table Talk?
Well, I have to share this. Just as we were getting ready to do the show, someone messaged me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, do you know the editor at Essence? I'd love a connection to her because you're mentioned in her article." I'm like, what? So Essence had their top podcasts. Brown Table Talk was listed. I had no idea. So it's resonating. Dee and I were like, oh my God, Essence, like how amazing. Essence.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Along with lots of other great podcasts. But, I have to go back and look at those. I was just, oh my God, we're on the list. So I'll do that after our show.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, Dee and I have known each other for years. I was her coaching client back in the day, the client she can't get rid of. And we would be in audio messages, texts, dinners, late night calls, be talking about all of the things that we were experiencing in corporate America. And 2 years ago, we had this idea to do a podcast. And there's nothing like a pandemic to sort of say, okay, what are the things that matter to me now? And all the stories we were hearing. And so that was really, Brown Table Talk is really an opportunity to help women think about how they can go from surviving to thriving in corporate America and in their workspaces and places, but also like for allies to pull up and to hear these stories. Like some of these stories, when allies reach out, they're like, I had no idea this happens or would happen to you, right? And so that's what I think has been most surprising is we were creating this podcast for women of color and allies. We knew the stories would resonate with women of color and the tips that we leave at the end, both for women of color and allies. But Stephen, have been like overwhelmed by allies being like, I've never heard these stories. Like, I feel like you're inviting me to like secret meetings where we're just sharing it all. And someone said to me, UND take no prisoners. And I had one woman of color reach out to me and said, I feel like you're reading my personal journal, right? Like, I feel like, and so the other thing I will say is like, these stories are real. My stories are our stories. People are like, I can't, because I'm creative, I'm a writer. Is she making up these stories? No, they've all happened to me. And it's validating when other people are like, this happened to me. Oh my God, I can't believe you're sharing this.
Yeah. I have a friend, Kristen Hadid, who introduced me to the term GTS, which means Google that shit. And so I think to our previous conversation on if you wish to become an ally or you wish to learn what it's like to be a female of color in the workplace, look no further than Brown Table Talk, and something I'm going to continue listening to. So awesome. I think case in point, as opposed to having to bug someone for primary education, do the work. Much like you wouldn't show up to a job interview and ask them about the job and the company, then you do your research.
Absolutely. And we just filmed season 2 that'll be coming out shortly. So we're excited for that. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So cool. We have a few minutes left here. So if anyone has any other comments or questions for Mita before we hop, keep them coming. This has been enlightening and great. What else, Mita? What else have we not talked about that you wanted to, or that we could in our time remaining here before we close out?
Yeah. People often ask me, like, what can I be doing to further the D&I agenda, right? Yeah. I mean, one of the things is, do you have a chief diversity officer? Do you have someone? Pressure your company, get a team in there who can help. But what can you be doing? Because we should all be DE&I champions. My hope is that this job doesn't need to exist when my kids are in the workforce, right? Yeah. I don't think we're going to get there. But so here are some of the ways in which you can be advocating in the workplace. Like, if you are hiring right now for a role, ask your recruiter, do you have a diverse slate? How are you getting access to a diverse pipeline? And can you actually be actively looking to get mothers who have been out of the workforce and bring that amazing talent in? The second is, just as Stephen, you said, like, when you are in these talent reviews, these forums with leadership, and someone makes the comment like you did and you learned from your CEO, make sure that you are stepping in. Oh, there's a huge travel role that's coming up. Mita's up for a promotion. Oh, she's a new mom. She can't do that. Well, have you asked Mita? And like, if Mita was a man, if she was a father, would you be asking that question, right? So those are ways to like open-ended questions, help people check their bias. And finally, like, I don't care if you have a $50,000 check or a $5,000 check. If you are spending money on behalf of your company, think about supplier diversity, think about how you can support Black-owned businesses, and vote with your wallet, right? Like, think about gift giving, think about thank you gifts, appreciation gifts, support small owned businesses.
And my thank you for all of that. Those are great practical tips. I love seeing when there are DEI teams at organizations that aren't just people of color or marginalized populations. There are people who are white who care about this stuff. And I think, if the very people we depend upon creating the change are the people who need the change most, I don't think that's fair or right.
We need more white leaders doing the DE&I work and being in those roles and not making the assumption, I am brown and I do this work. But too often we make the assumption that the Black talent will want the DE&I job. No, the Black talent's looking to be CRO.
Yeah.
Ask people what they want. Don't assume, don't pigeonhole them or stereotype them.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anyone who thinks that they don't have bias, it's just not possible. We all have bias, and it comes from our upbringing. It comes from media. It comes from, forces outside of us that we've put inside of us. And I think it's the work to learn, what are my biases? Oh, wow. And then how can we work with it as opposed to make it so?
Absolutely.
Cool. any final words? Where else can people learn more? And just thank you for joining us. This has been such a great
thank you for having me on the show. Please follow me on LinkedIn, connect, and anyone who's looking for a job, if I can be helpful at all, please let me know. And Stephen, thanks for being an ally. I really mean that. I know that Lan introduced us, but I'm like, oh, you're always posting, you're always commenting, you're always sharing. And I hope that more of us will do that for each other, not only on the digital platform, but in real life.
Well. Yes. Well, and I think I've trained my algorithm well, Mita. Every morning when I open up my LinkedIn, like, you're the top one.
Oh God. Okay. Well.
So whatever you're doing, whatever the algorithm's doing, it's working. And I really resonate and love all the stuff that you're putting out there, and I learn from it. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in live. Thanks for those who have made it this far into the recording. And include more people today. Ask them questions, be curious, care, because we need a lot more of it in this world today.
Thanks so much.
Thanks all.